This is an Accelerativ Thrust special news report.
Howdy. We asked people to send us a list of their favorite records. And at first the response was very little, so we reached out to people, and then the response was really great. So great that we're going to have to split this into 2 episodes. I didn't send out a lot of instruction regarding what the messages should be like. So you'll notice sometimes I introduce someone if they didn't do it, or we even read a message that they sent to us. Some people's were 20 seconds long, while other people's were 20 minutes long. I tried to get it down to under 5 minutes at the most for each person. And yeah, so that's going to be the format we're following. The response was so great. It was so overwhelming and amazing. And I think you'll all enjoy this.
A lot of people always thought Big Bird was like a good guy. I always thought he had a front going on. Like there was something not right with that bird.
Yeah.
You had to look into his eyes.
Ouch.
You had to look into his eyes, and you could see it.
Mm-hmm.
There was threats.
Yeah, wild eyes, like Manson eyes. He had Charlie Manson eyes.
Citizens of Earth, welcome to Accelerativ Thrust. I'm Dan.
And I'm Erik.
And there's a lot going on in the world today. Did you know that Lady Gaga...
Something wrong with the world today. I don't know what it is.
Except I definitely know what it is, because it's all over the news.
I love that song.
Yeah, me too.
Living on the Edge. I think I love Aerosmith. I think we talked about that. But,
we talked about the 90s Aerosmith having some pretty good good songs. I'm not the hugest Aerosmith fan, but they do have some jams.
Yeah. Like if you haven't listened to the episode or the show very much, we've talked about 90s era Aerosmith, probably 60 of those episodes of the 150. So yeah. I mean, anytime someone says amazing or crazy or there's something in the world, anything like that, then we reference it. We reference it. Yeah. Yeah.
I actually think it was only like 2 or 3 episodes,
probably.
it feels like 60 after
they all run together.
Yeah, they all run together.
I'm sorry. What were you going to say? Lady Gaga.
Lady Gaga, yes. She's putting out a new album called Mayhem, which is supposed to be influenced by...
Mayhem?
Yes, it's called Mayhem.
Yeah. Oh, influenced by Mayhem.
No, not influenced by Mayhem. It's supposed to be influenced by 9 Inch Nails.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that could mean a lot of things.
It could mean a lot of things. To be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, Pretty Hate Machine to Downward Spiral to the score music. I don't know. There's a lot of 9 Inch Nails.
There's a lot of 9 Inch Nails out there. And, I don't even care. I don't know why I even brought this up. I don't care.
Yeah, we don't care.
Yeah.
That's one of the main things about this show.
So it's 9 Inch Nails. You like 9 Inch Nails, right, Erik?
I like them.
Okay.
I like 9 Inch Nails. I like Pretty Hate Machine a lot. And I like the Downward Spiral a lot. And then I like a lot of the score stuff of late. Yeah, okay. So Pretty Hate Machine I like, and Broken I like, and Downward Spiral I like. And then, it wasn't really until the score stuff that I started listening again. But I hear Bad Witch is good. I hear Ghosts.
It's very good. So is
good. With Teeth, I've heard is good.
With Teeth is pretty. I mean, honestly, the whole catalog, the whole darn catalog. Year Zero is great, and a lot of people didn't really care for it, but I thought Hesitation Marks, the last full length, was actually fantastic. But those first 3 albums. Broken EP, Pretty Hate Machine, and Downward Spiral they're pretty unbeatable. You know?
I'm looking through their records, and the single for Down in It, it looks so much like that White Noise cover.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised if it was an influence.
Man, White Noise, that's a good one, right?
Yeah,
that was a record we sort of discovered together on here.
Yeah, it is.
It's so good, guys.
Yeah,
it's going to go on my list right now. I'm just kidding.
Put it out there. Yeah.
Speaking of lists, we reached out to people, friends of the shows, people that we've reviewed, people we've interviewed, people we know are listeners, and asked them to send us a voicemail or a message, basically talking about their favorite albums. And I gotta say, I was overwhelmed by the responses, and not just the amount, which is a lot, and that's amazing, but also just how serious people took it. And like, it was almost like no one's ever asked them this before, or like if they've been asked it, it was like whatever, they didn't have time to really think about it or like make a decision. And so a lot of these answers are really cool, and I'm so excited to hear what everyone says, because it's so diverse and
absolutely
so interesting how things affected people on a personal level. And it's really cool. And so our plan is we're just going to play those, or we're going to read some that were sent as text messages or whatever. And we're just going to listen to all that for a while. And I think it's going to be really fun. I think if you like the show, you probably know a lot of the people that are going to talk, and it's going to be really cool. So we're going to do that for a while. And then Dan and I are going to come in and talk about our favorite albums. And I got to say, and I'll repeat this again, this was like one of the hardest things I think I've ever done.
It was very difficult.
Maybe that shows how easy my life has been.
Yeah, maybe.
Right? My hardest challenge was figuring out my favorite albums. But seriously, though, like I texted Dan, and I'm like, I'm sorry, we got to add more to our list, because it literally will break my heart to take some of these things off my list.
Absolutely.
And so I just think it's really cool that people responded. And so, yeah, let's listen to those.
Let's do that.
We'll be back. We'll probably have to cut in, obviously, to read things or whatever. But this is kind of your time. You've listened to us a lot at this point. So we're all excited to hear what you have to say.
Hey there, this is Justin Comer. I wanted to talk about some of my favorite albums, because that's what you guys are doing for your 150th episode, is letting people talk about their favorite music. I had a kind of hard time picking. I decided to narrow it down to five favorite albums, and it's tough. It's tough because there's so much stupid music that I love a lot that's embarrassing to include. So once you cut all those out, it's like, well, what's something that makes me look cool? So here's something that makes me look cool. The first Naked City album. So fun, but so like cool and experimental, like the rapid shifts, like turning on a dime, going from a country song to like grindcore. And John Zorn's just like screaming saxophone is so inspirational to me. I love that first Naked City album. Another of my favorites, this one's not as cool, but at the time I felt very cool. Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction. I mean, come on, it's one of the best albums ever, really, right? And when you're like in middle school and you know all the words to My Michelle from Appetite for Destruction, you feel like such a like cool grown up for knowing that song. Another one that was like an early influence on me, The Cure's Disintegration. God, what a perfect album. I remember being like 14, laying in bed listening to that, and like playing song kicks in, and it's like, oh my God, I'm enveloped in like a dark world. All the reverb and all the synth stuff. It's just the guitar layers, the perfect vibe, that album. They Might Be Giants is one of my favorite bands because I'm a huge dork. And this was really hard. Like I can't really pick my top They Might Be Giants album, but for this list I'm going with Factory Showroom, which if I remember right is the second full band album. I generally like, overall, their early duo stuff is like more my thing because they're like really stretching out and doing strange stuff to compensate for the lack of full band. But Factory Showroom, I mean, for the song Spiraling Shape alone, just fantastic album. And then I also wanted to pick a local. Well, I didn't just want to. I actually like really love this album. But Death Kill Overdrive's album Juicin' from a couple years ago is such a great. Like, I feel like they could be ambassadors of the IO city punk scene just with that album. It's such a perfect like melodic hardcore album. I gotta mention, this is like an honorary, not one of my top 5, but the greatest album cover ever. And I've said this many times to many people, and it still holds true. The best album cover ever is Pantera's Metal Magic. If you don't know, look up Pantera Metal Magic. This is from before they like pioneered their kind of groove metal sound, before Phil Anselmo was there, when they were still a glam metal band, which is obviously like the best era of Pantera. So Pantera's Metal Magic, look that up. Actually, put that at the very top of my list just for the album cover alone. And we'll kick off, let's get rid of Naked City. put Pantera Metal Magic in the list, and then kick off the coolest album, Naked City, so it's a more accurate reflection of who I am as a person. All right, thanks. See ya.
Here's Brian Snyder from Catastrophic Solutions.
For my favorite album, I'm going to choose Black Sabbath's Paranoid. The sound on that album changed my musical style forever. That and Eddie Van Halen's guitar, of course, pushed me to a darker and heavier side of music that I didn't know existed before then. Black Sabbath was nightmare fuel for me at 10. Hearing Ozzy yell, "I am Iron Man," in that creepy, weird robot voice with Tony Iommi dragging some note, bending a note from just the pits of hell, scared the shit right out of me, and it had me hooked instantly. Without those 4 men getting together, I would not be the same musically.
Here's Gabby Vanek from Death Bag, as well as lots of other cool things.
So I was thinking about the task of favorite albums, and originally I was going to do like a top 3 of like, you know, metal, because that's like my homeworld, and then like a top 3 of experimental and you know, contemporary classical music. And I realized that was turning into a task, because it is quite hard to pick some of my favorite, you know, contemporary classical and experimental albums. But I can tell you that like one of my top albums of all time consistently is Obscura by Gorguts. I don't know what it is about that album. I listened to it when I was 16, but it was like everything I wanted in music. And I feel like it sounds trite to reference Schoenberg with like the emancipation of dissonance, but it was killer. Every time I listen to it, I just feel like I've discovered something new, and I'm just really, really excited about it. It's such a killer listen. And I remember once reading, or perhaps listening to, an interview where Obscura in particular isn't actually meant to be as theoretically able to be analyzed the way it is, even though Luc Lemay was a dropout of the Montreal Conservatory. But to me, it is pretty much just experimental, you know, uppity music that just happens to come in a death metal package. And so it's always just been a really special album to me. See you next time.
Hey guys, it's Tobin from Moscow Puzzles. Quick and dirty, top 5 favorite albums off the top of my head. Millions Now Living Will Never Die by Tortoise. Pink Flag by Wire. Gateway by John Abercrombie. Conference of the Birds by Dave Holland. And Public Strain by Women. Thanks.
Here's Jason Salick from Old Scratch Revival Singers and Los Voltage.
I guess I can't really think about like what my favorite record of all time is. More like the kinds of records that are my favorite records of all time, which is basically like, say, something like Kraftwerk, them starting out is my favorite, mainly because there's nobody else like them. You say that band sounds like Kraftwerk, or something completely different than that would be a band like Ween that has their own thing going, and I don't know, like there isn't a lot of bands that you even can compare to that, to Ween. But also the first of their kind sort of things, like the Ramones' first record especially will always be one of like my top five, probably, if I had to narrow them down. And like Throbbing Gristle, that's another, like, I don't know, the trailblazing bands, like, through whatever genre, Aphex Twin, I don't know, all that's what I think about when I think of my favorite records, and the ones that I need to have so I can listen to them whenever I want. I don't really need to have every record, but I do like having all the stuff that is important to me, you know. And I'll end that with saying Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys obviously should be most people's favorites records, along with Smile. Little footnote to it that I can't believe I said everything in that last message without mentioning the Velvet Underground. I think most things in popular music stem from like the Velvet Underground, James Brown and P-Funk, and I don't know, the psychedelic stuff of the 60s. So that, I don't know, Velvet Underground definitely has probably been my number one band for the last 25 years. But I hope that I talked enough in this rambling call to satisfy your needs. Thank you.
Hello, this is Alex from way too many projects like Murnau, The Houseflies, and my solo work Wilhelm. First of all, congratulations to Accelerativ Thrust on their 150th episode, an impressive number for any podcast, and I can't state my appreciation enough for all they do for the Midwest scene and helping to spread the word for local artists, ourselves included, and many others. There's not many out there focusing on the scene in Iowa and Illinois and around this area, so appreciate that. I'll try to keep this short and to one specific album, as my opinion changes daily. With that said, Leonard Cohen's first album, Songs of Leonard Cohen, is one I've listened to on repeat. After hearing it used as a soundtrack to Werner Herzog's film Fata Morgana, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right or not, so no judgment, please. From the intimate production, Cohen's lyrics, and his ability to perfectly match those to melodic acoustic guitar finger-picking, every single song is pretty much timeless. It's one of the few albums I've listened to repeatedly, and I can still put it on right after recording this soundbite and enjoy every second again. So, again, congrats to Accelerativ Thrust, and can't wait to see what you guys are doing for episode 300.
Joe Munson says, the Dillinger Escape Plan, Calculating Infinity.
Hi, my name is Ike Turner. Not that Ike Turner, but the alive one who doesn't do cocaine. I live in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and I play in a bunch of bands, including New Standards Men, Three Grebes, and just a whole bunch of others. Wowza. Yeah, I'd like to talk about just two records that are my favorite. Maybe a statistical tie, I'm not sure. One is Spirit of Eden by the great Talk Talk. This was a real shift for them, obviously, when it came out in the late 80s. They went from being a kind of Duran Duran style new romantic band to something else, to leaning into whatever weird tendency Mark Hollis was into at that time, or obsession, really. He was a man of routine, apparently. And in this routine that he got into, he wanted to use equipment that was made before, 1968 or something, that he was obsessed with because of a Spencer Davis Group record. And the results of that, mixed with his obsessive love of jazz, were just amazing. It's a perfect record. I listen to it constantly, to be honest with you, even now after having heard it many, many, many times. And then the other album is a record by Neil Young called Time Fades Away. That would, I suppose, gun to head would be my favorite record of all time. It's raw. It's amazing. A friend of mine once said there's no art there. And I think he meant that as a compliment. It's an album I've listened to more than any other record, and one that still sounds fresh to me. And it's the record that, in his catalog, he clearly kind of hates. Was not available for many, many years on any format, really. And I was lucky to find a vinyl copy in 1998 or something in Fargo, North Dakota. And changed my life. It's a record that I listen to even much like with the Talk album. Maybe every week, actually, to be honest with you. I still listen to that record very much, and it still hits me hard. So thank you for listening. I hope all is well for everyone out there listening to this. Thank you.
Here's Jessica Zielinski from Chachka.
Some of my favorite albums of all time, in no particular order, are Suto Boreko by Afari Rampo, This Heat's self-titled album, pretty much everything by Thinking Fellers Union, Local 282. I would say some of my tops might be Lovelyville and I Hope It Lands. Feather Float by OIOO and Lovin' Us All by Pharaoh Sanders.
Well, hello, acceleratively thrusting men. This is Chuck. Long time no talk. Thank God, right? Yeah, same here. I decided to take some time away from my busy schedule as a professional DJ and help you out with your little podcast 150th episode thing. I know the idea of a favorite album is almost frightening to most of music fans like us. There's so many genres and styles that we all like something from them, right? Like all the different ones, and so it makes it impossible to choose or narrow it down. And so you guys asking this question is actually like kind of a bullcrap move, But anyway, about 10 years ago, I tried to pick an all-time favorite song, narrowed it down, and I got to where I was like, you know what, I'm just going to pick one to tell people that this is my all-time favorite song, because they all kind of mean the same thing anyway, to me, they're all important to me, so whatever. If somebody asks me, I'll just say, you know what, my all-time favorite song is Walking on Sunshine by Katrina and the Waves, and so shut up. That's it. I know what my all-time favorite song is. Don't ask me a question that tries to make me look like I don't know what I'm talking about. So anyway, that is the song I picked, Katrina and the Waves, Walking on Sunshine, because it's kind of like insanely happy and it's a positive song, and I might not be the best person to talk about that, because I'm the one who's consistently stated that Neutron Dance by the Pointer Sisters is going to be played at my funeral. But anyway, I tried to kind of apply that different idea to your guys' question of all-time favorite album, by saying, well, not so much what's my all-time favorite album, but what's an album that I'm not going to turn off. What's an album I don't ever not want to hear, And so I looked at it that way, and it was a little bit easier to pick some albums, that looking back and that I can be like, oh, this or that. But Free Throw is an emo revival band. Those Days Are Gone, Bear Your Mind. Both those albums are great, but I couldn't pick one because I like songs on both of them so much or whatever. Ziggy Stardust by David Bowie. I can put that on anytime and just be like, all right, this is cool. A great album, another feel good type album when I know that I won't turn off if I hear it. It's got one of my favorite songs, Rip It Up, on it. It's called Here's Little Richard. That's from 1957, and Little Richard's great. But if I'm gonna pick an album that I'm gonna tell people confidently it's my all-time favorite, it's gonna be an album called The Trouble Tree by Freddie Johnston. It's his first album, And it's a little bit different than his other albums because he's kind of a perfectionist. So a lot of his albums are like well manicured and everything is perfect on them. But on this album, it was his first thing. It was kind of like songs that he had written as jokes, and he just had session musicians come in and they just recorded it. And they had a good time doing it. The album itself, it's awesome. It starts out with like a declaration of like, this is what I'm going to tell you. And then it goes through like, youthful songs like youthful exuberance, surrender and complacency, loss, reflection and anger of that loss, bliss with knowing, you're close to death, embracing that, you got time left, but it's not, you only got so much time left, and being okay with it. And none of this is in the lyrics. This is just my like interpretations that I have of this album. I've been listening to it for like 30 years or whatever, so I have a lot of different little thoughts and ideas about this album. I could do probably my own podcast about just this album and so many things I've thought of it. But I just wanted to phone up and say Freddie Johnston, The Trouble Tree, that's my favorite album. See you guys.
Hey guys, it's Corey Peak. Just wanted to share a couple of my favorite albums with you guys. My memory kind of sucks, but after thinking about it for a few, I made a quick list, including I Am Trash by It's All You Cowboy, Future Me Hates Me by The Beths, Desert Horse by Nico, Harvest by Neil Young, Pink Moon by Nick Drake, Celestial Blues by King Woman, also Black Star by David Bowie.
Okay, this is from Pete Balistreri from the Violent Femmes and the Old Scratch Revival Singers. He says he's not a favorite guy. He likes too many things, and his taste changed so much over the years. But if you had to pick one album that he's played the most, listened to the most, given as a gift the most, and had the most profound effect on him as a musician, on what he wanted to play and how he wanted to play it, and everything, he said, Solo Monk by Thelonious Monk. He said everything on that album is something that Monk really loved and then translated through his genius into what you hear. Pete says he doesn't have any genius, but that's what he does with his solo act. He just takes things he loves and plays his versions of them. Awesome. So thanks, Pete.
Hey, dude. It's Manda here. Sorry about all the cows in the background. I mean, it is Iowa. So, okay, we're talking about music today. And I would say right now, my new obsessions are like Amyl and the Sniffers and Sloth Rust and Wet Leg. But for all-time favorite music that I'm never going to be like, turn it off. Actually, I'll be like, slap it on. Butthole Surfers. I don't know maybe it's Electric Larryland. That sounds right. But it's got Pepper and Christina on it. I really like that album a lot. King Crimson, Tarkus, obviously, fucking love that. The Judgment Night soundtrack, I could listen to that over and over again. I just love it. Cracks me up, gets me pumped. L7, pretty much any album. And Hole, Live Through This. I get down to that one still. Can't really help it. I love it. House of Large Sizes, My Ass Kickin' Life. Just the very opening of that gets me going. And I found a copy in Chicago on vinyl, and it's in really good shape, and it was only $30, and I was like, you don't know what you have, sucker. Anyway, but I think Breeders, All Nerve, I think it's their newest album. I love that album. When I bought it, I put it on. I listened to side A like 11 times before I even flipped it. I love that album. It's pretty much, if I'm sitting down to art and I'm not putting on some kind of TV, then I put that on and listen to that. But the most listened to album probably ever is Siamese Dream, Smashing Pumpkins. I listen to it at midnight every single New Year's. listen to it on my birthday every year. It's just a really great album that reminds me of like being young and being alive and being like feeling powerful and unstoppable. And I still get that feeling when I listen to it. And then after that's over, you got to slap on Melancholy because there's like so many super heavy, wonderful fucking songs on that album. We actually just listened to both of those last night playing games at my house, and we've got 3 copies of each of those, 2 that we don't listen to and 1 that we're wearing out real quick. So those are most of my favorite albums, but oh my god, I didn't mention Failure. Fantastic Planet. The song on there, The Nurse Who Loved Me, is like so fucking cool. When do you hear a song with the word topography in it? I mean, it's just amazing. I highly recommend that. Failure's great. That's the best album, though, as far as I'm concerned. Happy podcasting, man.
What's up? This is Denny from Iowa City. I play in Lou Sherry and Zool. And here's some albums that kind of shaped me. I don't think any of this stuff was made after 2005. I still listen to new music, but this is all the stuff. America's Greatest Hits is something my mom listened to in the car and in the kitchen while she did mom stuff. And I always complained. And when I quit complaining or started requesting to listen to it, that's how she knew that I was smoking weed. So the next one is The Nutcracker by Tchaikovsky. My sister was a dancer, and she had VHS of a performance, and I watched the shit out of it. Loved it. It's awesome. The next one's Rubber Soul by the Beatles, and that's something my brother listened to in our bedroom. We shared a room, and he had a record player that I was not allowed to touch. So when he put that on, I was pretty stoked. Then we got Miles Davis, Kinda Blue. My great uncle is a jazz trumpet player, and he would send me cassettes in the mail. A lot of them were mixtapes, and he'd send me classical stuff too because he knew I played violin. But he sent me that whole album on tape, and I listened to it all the time with my Walkman. It's just the best. Number 5 would be Ween, Pure Guava. Some friends of mine showed me that, and it was just the weirdest thing I'd ever heard. And I've had 12 copies of it probably. Let's see, number 6, Pork Soda, Primus. It's still just the best. Listen to that all the time. It was songs that were on skate videos. Just, yeah, so many copies of that. Let's see, John Frusciante, To Record Only Water for 10 Days. That one was huge for me because that's when I first started playing guitar. I learned a lot of those songs, and it just showed me that it's not as complicated as it seems. You don't have to just shred all the time. Number 8, Aquemini by Outkast. And that is also one that when I started to play, I started playing multiple instruments. And so I would just play drums to that, keyboard to that, bass to that, the whole album. And that was huge for me. Dr. Dog, We All Belong. That kind of showed me, like a light bulb went off, that once again, it's possible, vocal harmonies, things like that. I just didn't think that was something I could ever do, but you can. So let's see, number 10, Queens of the Stone Age, self-titled. That one was huge for me because my partner and I connected with that. It was like looking through her CD book in her car, and it was like, holy shit, we like all the same stuff, And I've been with that same person 13 years now, something like that. So that one is huge. Let's see, there was a gas station in my hometown, Mount Pleasant, and they sold CDs. So I would use my money from being a dishwasher at the truck stop to buy, skateboards and whatever and CDs. And I would just buy random stuff because I thought the cover was cool. So one of those was Sparkle Horse, Dreamt for Light Years in the Belly of a Mountain. it turned out to be awesome. And it's just really lo-fi, and I use a lot of those tricks, just kind of work with what you got. And so that one was huge. And another one was Brian Eno, Another Green World. And it's just floored me. And it's funny to spend $18.99 on a CD you've never heard of, and some of them were stinkers, but there's some bangers that came out of those that I still listen to. All that just shaped me. It's all quite broad, all these styles that I grew up with. And so that's it. Thanks, Dan and Erik. Peace out.
Okay, here's from Kyle Arthur Miller from Haunter. We have Finally We Are No One by Mum, Horses in the Sky by the Silver Mount Zion Memorial Orchestra and Tra La La Band, Yes by Joanna Newsom, Music for Egon Schiele by Rachel's, Hymn to the Immortal Wind by Mono, In the Aeroplane Over the Sea by Neutral Milk Hotel, A Dead Sinking Story by Envy, and Light Snowfall by Norihito Suda. Here's Russ Johnson from The Hate Daisies and Whorehound and Sundress.
So I had a hard time nailing down even 20 albums that I would consider favorites. So nailing just one down is impossible. So here's a few of mine in no particular order. I have Isis, Celestial, Russian Circles, Enter, Birds in Row, Personal War, Botch, We Are the Romans, Deltron 3030, self-titled, Indian, From All Purity, Spotlights, Alchemy for the Dead, Alice in Chains, Dirt, Anthrax, Among the Living. I have two for Converge. I have Jane Doe and All We Love We Leave Behind. Purple Rain by Prince. I have Carp, self-titled, Pavement, Crooked Rain, Lightning Bolt, Wonderful Rainbow, Andy the Doorbum, The Fool, Faith No More. I have The Real Thing, Angel Dust, and King for a Day, Fool for a Lifetime.
Here's Brooks Strauss from Old Scratch Revival Singers and Brooks Strauss and Spectral Snake.
My favorite album ever at this moment right now is The Dreaming by Kate Bush. Sonically, everything about it is inventive, groundbreaking. The structures, the progressions, the lyrics, the perspectives, everything she's doing is anomalous. And the way she sings, she is inventing new things constantly through every moment of the album. It sounds like music from the future still, over 40 years after she made it.
My name's Owen, and some of my favorite albums are Western Teleport by Emperor X, The Else by They Might Be Giants, and Beauty and the Beat by Edon.
Sam Hammond messaged us and stated in that message that Pantera's Metal Magic was a record that he always goes back to. Sam also mentioned that he's listening to a lot of polka right now.
Hey guys, it's your bud, Scott Jones, and I'm just going to talk just a bit about some of my favorite albums ever. Now, there's a difference between favorite album and best album ever. Like, to me, the best album of all time is Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. That is truly an iconic album. I know the word iconic gets thrown around way too much these days, but Dark Side of the Moon truly is iconic. But my favorite album of all time is The Downward Spiral by 9 Inch Nails. Perfection is hard to reach in this life, but I think Trent Reznor nailed perfection with that album. It's just perfect from start to finish. And as I look through this list of my favorite albums of all time, I noticed that most of them seem to be from the 90s, like the early to mid 90s. That seemed to be the era that influenced my tastes in music permanently, I suppose. I mean, I'm looking at this list and I see Psalm 69 by Ministry. I see Undertow by Tool. I see Angel Dust by Faith No More. I see Dirt by Alice in Chains. I see Seasons in the Abyss by Slayer. I mean, I know most people say that Rain and Blood is their favorite Slayer album, but for me, I think Seasons in the Abyss is their best album. It has the speed and the ferocity of Rain and Blood with the slow, doomy creepiness of South of Heaven. It's got everything you could ever want from a Slayer album. Let me look here on this list. I see 2 albums that really influenced my musical tastes and music and the style of music that I adored going into the later 90s. I see Demanufacture by Fear Factory, Korn's first album. I mean, those 2 albums for me personally, from like the mid to late 90s, were game changers. I know that's another term that gets thrown around way too much these days, but those 2 albums were game changers for me. And I guess to round out the rest of my top 10, I decided to pick my greatest metal album of all time for me, and that's Master of Puppets by Metallica. It is just perfect from start to finish. And if there's ever anyone who asks you what metal is or just to give you an example of what great metal can be, just playing Master of Puppets. That'll show them everything that they need to know. Okay, hope you dug my choices, and if you haven't listened to any of them for any reason, go ahead and give them a swirl. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Hi, Eric, in the Accelerativ Thrust audience. This is Lorelei DeAndriel. I've been on the podcast before with Justin Comer as part of the Unblessed Rest of Us, I think, probably. Longtime punk rocker and former Iowa City resident and musician. I'm currently playing in the band's Pet Me, which is an all-trans woman punk band based in Central Michigan, although I'm not on any of the recordings because I'm like their 3rd drummer. And I also play bass and sing in the band Danger Cat, which I think we've gained most of our popularity through writing a song about IBS. We should have an album coming out this year, but we have some tracks on Bandcamp that are funny and worth a listen. Anyway, favorite album. I'm just going to talk about my favorite album from 2024 because it's what came up for me, even though it's embarrassing. It is Warren Zevon's Preludes, rare and unreleased recordings. And I first heard the song Studebaker. Studebaker is I listened to the Grapes of Wrath audiobook last year, and then I heard Studebaker, and I was like, I'm so 20th century depression pilled right now. The Great Depression pilled, excuse me. I mean, it has a very like it reminded me almost of B1000 in that it's like, or like Paul Westerberg, where it's like, this is just a guy with his tape recorder recording his demos. And I fucking love demos. I love how lo-fi they are. I love how intimate they are. But anyway, I fell in love with like a really beautiful anarchist last year, and it was hot and fast and blew up. And it was embarrassing, humiliating, devastating. I was depressed for a really long time. And this was my breakup album of 2024. Like, hands down. I still in my CD changer in my car to this day. Hearing songs like Empty Hearted Town. Accidentally Like a Martyr is fucking destructive, and it sucks that only the Preludes version of this song is any good. I do not like the other versions. Carmelita, when I got over how appropriative it kind of felt, I thought that was beautiful as like an addict. I was listening to that song and I was like, damn, like this feels really, this feels intense. Stop Raining, Lord. And then, the final 2 tracks in the album so perfectly with the Rosarita Beach Cafe and Desperados Under the Eaves. I listened to this album front to back, except I skip Werewolves of London. So, yeah, what does this album mean to me? I like people with instruments playing by themselves in a room. I like how intimate it is. Accidentally Like a Martyr, like I hear Accidentally Like a Martyr, and I think of how humiliating it is to fall in love with someone so hard and it just like not work for whatever reason. And it's embarrassing for that to happen at 30. Like, what the fuck? Yeah, fuck Warren Zevon, except this album. I fucking love Preludes. That's my album of 2024. Yeah, thanks.
Here's Josh Carroll from Liberty Leg.
For the 150th episode of your podcast, I got a short list of my favorite records. They're going to be kind of like all over the map, and I'm going to sort of look at myself, through a history. So I'll start off with the classics: Jimi Hendrix Band, Gypsies, Led Zeppelin 2, maybe the first Pink Floyd record, Piper at the Gates of Dawn, just because it meant a lot to me. And then I got into like the fusion stuff. I really liked Jeff Beck, Blow by Blow and Wired, Mahavishnu Orchestra, Alan Holdsworth, Atabacron, and Sand. Those were big for me. Tony Williams' Lifetime, Believe It, anything that had kick-ass drums and all sorts of crazy stuff. Later, I was really into D'Angelo, really liked Voodoo, really liked Brown Sugar. I am a huge fan of the Roots record that they did. Game Theory, I think, was one of them. There's a couple of them that they did. They did a series of them in the early 2000s that I really enjoyed. One of the things that happens with me is that the music that I'm listening to becomes the soundtrack of that particular piece of my life. And I will listen to something incessantly and really identify with that. And the time, my age, what I'm doing, it will all play into this. And so when I listen to this music, the nostalgia of it comes back.
Sam Lockward, and here's a list I made of some of my favorite albums. I was thinking about this, and it'd be different if you asked me on a different day, but I was kind of thinking about like my favorites of all time. And here's my favorites of all time. A painful, rough list by Sam Lockward. In no particular order: T-Rex, The Slider, love that fucking record. The Kinks, Arthur. I was really torn on it. I love the Kinks. It was between that and Village Green. Maybe would have been Village Green on a different day, but Arthur. Dead Milkmen, Basil Bubba. I know there's like Milkmen albums that are maybe more classic or whatever, but man, Basil Bubba, what a fucking odyssey that record is. Beach Boys, Pet Sounds, talking about favorite things. Those vocal harmonies, that shit, it just aches after all these years, still so good. Mingus, Aham, the man screaming in the background the whole time, it's such good stuff. So soulful. Sabbath, Volume 4. There's a lot of good Sabbath albums about said master reality, but Volume 4 still sounds like it could have come out last week. The amps. You're gonna ask me if I'm Team Francis or Team Deal, and I'm gotta say I'm Team Deal. But this amps record just hit me at the right time in my life, and man, I listen to that over and over again. Dead Kennedys, Fresh Fruit for Rotting Vegetables. Turbo Negro, Apocalypse Dudes. Does any fucking record rock harder than Apocalypse Dudes? Daniel Johnston, Yip Jump Music. Of all the Daniel Johnston albums, that's the first one where like I just got fucking obsessed. What a fucking record. Violent Femmes, Hollowed Ground. Violent Femmes are an all-time band for me. Those first two are the ones that just speak to generations over and over again. And I like Hollowed Ground because it is so dark. Stooges, Funhouse. You know, I love Iggy and I love the Stooges and I love all that stuff, but Funhouse, it's the one that's just the fucking animal. Sun City Girls, Dante's Disneyland Inferno, the 2-hour descent into hellish children's music. Phil Oakes in concert. That is some of the greatest songwriting I have ever heard in my life. Minutemen, Double Nickels on the Dime. One of the all-time great punk records. Just a fucking odyssey of fucking great songs. Kimya Dawson, My Cute Fiend Sweet Princess. I about put the Moldy Peaches record on here. The Frogs, It's Only Right and Natural. You either love that record or you don't love that record. And if you don't love that record, it's okay. I get it. What a fucking weird fucking thing that is. Ween, The Mollusk. I love that record. Who doesn't love Ween? But man, and I was really going all over the place with what the best Ween album is. And really, for me, it's The Mollusk. I love The Mollusk. The Ventures. Any album by The Ventures is my favorite album by The Ventures. Because it's going to fucking rule. It's going to be The Ventures just playing whatever the top hits were of that season. And it's going to fucking blow your fucking mind. And GBV Propeller. GBV Propeller. Yeah, I'm. That's the opposite of The Ventures, where I'm a huge GBV head, and it beggars one to make lists and rank your favorite GBV records. I actually want to go, like, I hate sports analogies, but I really feel strongly that Bob Pollard is the Nolan Ryan of indie rock. You know, he's still great. He's still putting out albums. You know, maybe not everyone is the best, but it's a not zero chance he could still come out and throw a motherfucking no-hitter, because he's Bob fucking Pollard, one of the all-time goddamn best fucking songwriters ever. And that's my fucking list. Holy shit, it's long. Sorry,
I had to take a drink of water. So
this episode's brought to you by water.
By water, yes. Okay, so this is probably not going to surprise very many people. The album that I picked as my absolute favorite, and honestly, it could be so many records. Like Eric, I had the experience of changing my favorite record a few times, but it always comes back to this record, and that is The Lonesome Crowded West by Modest Mouse, which was released in 1997. This record is such a game changer for me. I was pretty deep into punk rock at the time. So I was listening to a lot of, Green Day, Rancid, stuff like that, which, I mean, the 90s punk rock, that was big. But also I had just recently discovered Fugazi and Dead Kennedys and Minor Threat and Black Flag and all that stuff. And it was starting to kind of I was starting to understand the amazingness of like Talking Heads and Devo, bands that maybe I didn't really appreciate in my adolescence, but that was starting to come to the surface. I was also really big into the Pixies. Our friend Tim, that Eric and I both know, who did one of the lists, I was going to Davenport, Iowa to see a movie with him and one of my best friends, Josh, who was also Tim's nephew. And he asked me if I had heard Modest Mouse yet. And I said no. So he put on a mixtape. This was way back in like 96, 97. And the mixtape had like 2 Modest Mouse songs and then a bunch of like sort of Midwest emo bands of the time, like Promise Ring and stuff like that. And also another, well, I think he was a friend of yours, Eric, but I kind of knew him, Nate Snidacker. He had a band called Killington Lost back then. So anyway, Tim played a couple of Modest Mouse songs, and it was kind of I thought it sounded kind of cool. We were in conversation, so it was kind of background music at that point, but I did kind of stop and listen and was sort of like, okay, this is sort of like almost like a mutant version of the Pixies or something. You know what I mean? And then I read an article about them in Spin Magazine, and I liked the description. And so this was back in the day where if you wanted to discover new music, you just literally had to pay $15 for a CD and hope that it was good. And so what I did was I actually special ordered the Lonesome Crowded West from Musicland. And I took it home, and the opening track, Teeth Like God's Shoe Shine, completely just smacked me in the face. I was like, I don't even know what I'm hearing. I don't know what I'm listening to. This is insane. I couldn't put my finger on it. I couldn't understand it. It was very dizzying. It was like almost 7 minutes long. It was probably the most just absolutely batshit crazy opener I've heard on an album. And that kind of still stands today. But there was something about it that was so almost hypnotic. Like it was just like, I don't know, it made me want to keep listening. And for a while, I started to kind of digest like what I liked about this record. And I started to analyze it a little bit. And I think over time, what this record does is it represents a period of time in my life where I cared about certain things. And for whatever reason, the lyrics that Isaac was singing about resonated with me. Some of those lyrics don't even make sense, like convenient parking or something, you know? But there was such a way that he was expressing it. And this was honestly the first band that I can think of that I started to pay attention to lyrics in a real way too.
Sure.
There was something about the way he said things that, and he almost does this like song talk at times. And he doesn't sing in any like, I guess for lack of a better way to describe it, conventional way. The song structures are not conventional. There's mistakes all over this record that are just left there. And I think that just adds to the personality of it. The production is at times very, I don't know, tinny or something. And it just sounds like three guys in the studio just experimenting with what they have. And putting out this opus kind of, and the sound of it is very, very raw and in your face, but there's moments of there's moments of anger and pain, but there's also just moments of like, I don't know, like hopefulness, I guess, kind of that shine through, or at least like maybe hopefulness is not the term that I'm looking for, but I can't find the term that I'm looking for. But it's not, it is kind of a depressing record. And I watched, but it's not, I don't know, something about it makes me kind of feel a certain way. And to this day, I can't put my finger on it. I don't think there's ever been a record that has made me feel the way that it does. The sound of it is kind of like like I said, kind of a mutated Pixies meets like moments of like Talking Heads, moments of something like Fugazi. The way that Isaac Brock does single notes over a lot of his vocal patterns, which are often doubled or tripled. And then the bass and the drums just sound so real. I know Calvin Johnson, I think, was a engineer on this album. And yeah, there's something kind of almost like Americana about it or something. Like some of the lyricism reminds me of like, I don't know, old school Americana or something. Jesus Christ was an only child, Cowboy Dan. But then you have moments of pure beauty. Beauty is the word that I was looking for. Beauty is the word I was looking for. Bankrupt on Selling is one of the most gorgeous songs I've ever heard, but also just one of the most tender and heartbreaking songs as well. A lot of this record seems to be aimed at consumerism and capitalism too. Like, I didn't realize it when until like very recently, but I mean, that line in Teeth Like God's Shoeshine about like, let's all get another Orange Julius.
Yeah.
Thick syrup standing in lines. The malls are the soon to be ghost towns.
Yeah, that resonated with me too the first time I heard it.
It's
Cool
like
lyric.
it's just like, and I didn't even know what he was talking about. Like it didn't until like recently when I watched, well, about 10 years ago, I watched a documentary on the album, and he mentioned that Isaac Brock himself mentioned that a lot of the songs are written about malls and sort of like this mall culture that's kind of coming through America and destroying these small towns. And you see it now, like every time you go, like Eric, I know in Iowa City, there's always like an old like store that seems to get like, demolished, and then it's replaced by like these sort of compact buildings that have like 4 or 5 businesses that you see everywhere now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's sort of like this record is sort of like almost taking aim at like the capitalistic death of like the small business owner or something.
Yeah. And I always found it to be like really prophetic. Like
exactly.
It was absolutely true. Because this came out in 97, right?
Yeah, it came out in 97.
Yeah, I think a lot of malls were still doing pretty well.
Yeah, I mean,
but since then, most of them have become ghost towns. Like
absolutely.
Literally. So pretty cool. Yeah, lyrically, I don't know if you want me to jump in with my opinion on this or not, but on this album. But yeah, I love it. I love it too. It was shown to me by Chuck, which I don't know if Chuck found it and showed Tim or Tim found it and showed Chuck. I don't know. Either way, kind of, yeah, came from those two. And I remember listening to it in Chuck's driveway at like 1 a.m, just like, he's like, we got to go listen to this. You got to hear this. And yeah, I was blown away by it too. I was blown away by the music, which is very strange and sparse. And I really liked the use of what I assume is some sort of sustainer or sustained pedal with it's got to be a Floyd Rose tremolo that he uses. Otherwise, that guitar would be out of tune. Like just those long high notes that he just bends the hell out of them. Like I've never heard anyone use that sound in that way. I heard it a lot in hair metal, but not like that. And lyrically, yeah, I just like, yeah, the mall lyric, opinions were like kittens, I was giving them away. Still is one of my favorite lyrics of all time. I love how weird it is. I like the songs. They're just real strange. Like Cowboy Dan is a weird ass song. Jesus Christ was an only child. Those are all of them are just like off. I don't think any of them come across as this is a normal song about normal things played in a normal way. There's not even like a moment of that. And the opening with Teeth Like God's Shoeshine, I don't know if I understood how theatrical song structure could be in a certain way before hearing that song.
Absolutely.
Like, it goes so many places, from just intensity to these subtle moments to just within one song, I felt like I was hearing 10 songs, and I was pretty affected by it. I think it's a great album.
Yeah, and like there's so many quotables too. Like another one of my favorite lyrics I've ever heard anywhere is on that song "Bankrupt on Selling," where he's just like, and I'll go to college and learn some big words. Then I'll talk real loud. Goddamn right, I'll be heard. And you'll remember the guy who learned all those big words he learned in college.
Right.
It's just like, and then like on Cowboy Dan, that one part where he's like speaking in the middle, and he's like, every time you think you're walking, you're just moving the ground. Every time you think you're talking, you're just moving your mouth. And every time you think you're looking, you're just looking down. Yeah. It's so like, it just, I don't know, like, this is going to sound a little silly, but to me, it's just so representative of the human condition that it's like, I don't know. And maybe I'm just looking too into it, but it's just like, the way I interpreted those lyrics is it's almost like, it's sort of narcissism. You know what I mean? Like, you think that you're doing something that's so amazing or life-changing, but really you're just existing like all of us. You know what I mean? Maybe that's not what the intent was, but that's kind of what I got out of it. You know what I mean? Like those kind of lyrics, you know, that seems to be what he's touching upon. And Modest Mouse has put out some amazing material before then and since then, but I just don't think they ever reached the same type of level that they did with this record. And it changed my life when I heard it. It literally made me think about the way I wrote songs. I mean, I was just like, I can't think of another record that has ever done that in that way to me.
Right.
So yeah.
That's awesome. Great choice.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Yeah. What are your honorable mentions?
Okay. So my honorable mentions, Faith No More, King for a Day, Fool for a Lifetime. Could have been Angel Dust, could have been Real Thing. That was a hard one, but King for a Day is the one that sticks with me. Beck Odelay, again, it could have been Midnight Vultures. Tool Anima. This is another record in a different way that affected me, sort of like Modest Mouse, in that it made me think about how I'm writing songs. Ween the Mollusk, Nirvana, Nevermind. Also, Nirvana in Utero. Both of those records. Yes, 2 Nirvana records.
Wow.
Yeah, because I couldn't pick just one, man.
Yeah.
Nevermind and In Utero are just, they're different records, but they both just totally affected me when they came out. Fugazi, Repeater. Again, it could have been any Fugazi record, but Repeater, this is the one. Dr. Octagon Ecologist. Cool Keith. Just, it totally restored my faith in hip hop.
Nice.
In like 96. This is an odd choice. Anti-Pop Consortium, Arrhythmia. This is another rap album that totally made me, I don't know, it restored my love for hip hop again in 2002 because it was so, I think, futuristic and forward thinking. And I think honestly that a lot of rappers today, whether they know it or not, are borrowing heavily from what Anti-Pop Consortium was doing back in 2002, at least sonically, definitely not lyrically. Red Hot Chili Peppers, Blood Sugar Sex Magic.
Nice.
I mean, this is a record that got me into alternative and punk music. And I can't deny the influence it's had on my life. Mr. Bungle, Disco Volante. Another one that just made me think about how I'm writing music, but in a much different way than the other Anima or Lonesome Crowded West. Built to Spill, Keep It Like a Secret. This is another. I mean, Doug Marsh, I think, is one of the best songwriters of all time. I've talked about that. Again, it could have been like 3 or 4 Built to Spill records, but this is the one. We've talked about this one, and I think you and I agree that this is the best album of theirs, Erik. They Might Be Giants, Apollo 18.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough one.
It is tough because Flood and Lincoln could have been there too.
Yeah, right.
And then Flaming Lips, The Soft Bulletin. I love Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots, and I love Clouds Taste Metallic. But Soft Bulletin, I think, is such a game changer that it's not even funny. I mean, well, I guess it is kind of funny. Yeah. And oh man, MF Doom, food. MF Doom, I think. Again, it's hard for me to pick if it's Cool Keith or MF Doom. That's my favorite MC. It depends on the day. I love the Mad Villain record, and there's so many MF Doom projects I could put on here, but Food is just so hilarious and so complex with its rhymes that I just have to put this one here, I think. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the last one I'm going to go ahead and put on is Smashing Pumpkins' Siamese Dream.
Nice.
I know we talk a lot about how we like Melancholy, and I love Melancholy, but Siamese Dream, man, is just, it's a time in my life. I heard that record when I needed to hear it. So
nice. Yeah. Sweet. I think some of those are on what other people sent in. So that's really cool.
Okay, that's the first part of episode 150. Go on to the next one to hear more lists and reviews and my ultimate number one record. And thanks again.
Honestly,